For the record, my name is Brian Ripon. I am a member of the Teachers and Leaders Council, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the Teachers and Leaders Council. The Teachers and Leaders Council had broad support for most of the things in this bill. There was, as Chair Salazar mentioned, a lot of discussion around the percentage of the SLG, and that percentage that has been recommended is why I am not in support of this bill as it's written. And my question is, why would we stop at 20% when there also seems to be broad consensus that there are a lot of mitigating factors in the success of students? It seems to be just a number where we settled on because it's halfway between 0 and 40. I want to point out that all of the Teachers and Leader Council members that are currently in the classroom, they voted for a motion to reduce it to 10%. There was a lot of discussion and a lot of people that were in the middle and not quite sure because they didn't know how it would play politically, and they were kind of uncertain to bring it all the way, so to speak, down to 10. And the people that supported the 20 or higher were all out of the classroom, folks. Now, the SLG in itself, the intent is great. And I have nothing to say poorly about the intent, which is to codify a process that all teachers do to have rich dialogue between their administrators about the learning and the goings-on in the classroom. As Chair Salazar said, the SLG is not about test scores. It's about stuff we do every day. The problem has been in the implementation and the forced use of third-party tests to do the measurement. And even though we have multiple measures, in a lot of places, it is the third-party test. If they don't get a score on that third-party test, then none of the other measures matter. And I have a couple of examples. In 17-18, when I was first on the council, there was a school that told me that they were told by their admin they have to do SLG on math and they have to use the MAP test. I would ask for just a few more moments, just to show I gave these over to the counter. There's a diagram that completely misrepresents the process of choosing an assessment. On the top it says, if available and appropriate. And it starts off with third-party tests and gets down to where teachers actually do the work of creating their own tests. And in that TLC meeting in the fall of 17, Chair Salazar really explained how this really is kind of upside down, and we really want people to create their own assessments. And so my point is the implementation is making the weight of even 20% way too high, and it's still a threat. It is the #1 issue that teachers have in terms of their worries in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Phil Kaiser. I'm a high school teacher in Reno, Nevada, a proud member of WEA and NSEA, and a National Board Certified teacher. The purpose of student assessment should be to find out what a student has learned, then to remediate, adjust, reteach, or enrich. It should not be to judge how good a teacher is. And let me tell you why. Most of the factors, as you've already heard, are beyond the teacher's control: poverty, hunger, domestic violence at home. In addition, and directly to the point of SLOs and SLGs, it's virtually impossible to isolate what I do from what other teachers and what students do on their own to learn. I have a given class for 49 minutes a day. My SLO baseline had them read from the Federalist Papers and have them determine in a written form whether factions represent the basis of democracy or the bane of democracy. 6 to 8 weeks later, from the selling of the president, they write a brief essay on whether issues or image are the key parts of whether someone gets elected or not. But students have also had 6 to 8 weeks of English, 6 to 8 weeks of science, 6 to 8 weeks of other classroom experience and their own experience. How do you isolate what I do from what other teachers do in teaching them these skills as far as writing and thinking? My assessments seek to promote deep thinking and about core concepts of democracy, but 6 to 8 weeks may not be enough to measure whether they've learned that. When SLOs are a high percentage of an evaluation, the teacher may choose a simpler objective with a hard baseline and an easier final to ensure that every student shows growth. When an SLO is a low percentage of a teacher's evaluation, a teacher might try a more ambitious objective, a more creative project, without worrying that his career might be in jeopardy if students don't show the required growth. please reduce significantly the percentage of the evaluations based on SLO performance from 40% to no more than 15%. If that's the ultimate goal after 2 years, let's move to 15%. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Clint Toledo. I'm a special education teacher at Hug High School in Reno, Nevada. My concern with the current SLO, SLG weights is that I don't believe that it's an authentic representation of what I can do. WCSD has adopted a co-teaching model for their special education classrooms, which means whatever score I receive on my SLO, SLG isn't just my own, but it is also based on what my co-teacher can and cannot do. So based on who I am paired with, whether they are an effective educator as deemed by the SLO, SLG or not, impacts what I can do and deems whether what I do in my classroom for my students of need is effective or not. I'm going to wrap it up at that.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Susan Kaiser, and I am a National Board Certified Teacher in my 24th year in the classroom. I am also a proud member of the Washoe Education Association and the NSEA. This year, I have 175 students, and I have actually completed an SLO. Teachers are a dedicated group of people, and every day they are prepared to spend an entire day with a room full of children, helping them to learn and practice new skills, modeling how to interact with others positively, and managing what happens when they don't. Every day, teachers fulfill the roles of nurse, mental health provider, referee, problem solver, and cheerleader for success for every student on their roster. None of these roles is measured in the current SLO process, yet they are prerequisites for successful student learning. The belief that any teacher's competence can be measured by an SLO developed and implemented with a single class of 30 students as a fair and meaningful measure is misguided. Educators are doing so much more that is not able to be quantified. An SLO is a snapshot of an educator's impact on student learning, providing only a fraction of the larger picture. Therefore, the SLO should be a smaller percentage of a teacher's evaluation. This year, the SLO was 40% of a teacher's evaluation, which is significantly too high. The value of an SLO should be no more than 15%. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Dawn Miller, and I am in my 25th year as a music teacher in Washoe County School District. First, let me explain that I'm a supporter of the student learning objectives. I was actually one of the pilot schools 7 years ago, and I've been writing, this is my 7th SLO. When they came out, they were to help us with the instruction of our students and help with the conversation we had with our administrator, making it meaningful. I used to have it, my administrator would come in, I teach music, she'd see notes on the wall, not know what I was doing. But as we wrote the SLOs, they understood what my process was, and it became a very meaningful evaluation. I sit here today, though, as a teacher whose SLO has been deemed failing because my students did not make enough growth. My students made amazing growth, between 30, 40, and 50%, up to 70%, but it was not high enough to deem the SLO as successful. But I see those students as very successful today. I knew it was 40% when I wrote it, but I still chose to write a new one, challenge my students, and challenge myself to a higher standard. This news should be where we start the conversation with my administrator, but it's where we close it down because it is 40%. So the results are in and my evaluation is done. I only found out today that I will be at the base of effective. That is the first time in my 25 years that I have not been high effective or highly effective, and I was almost developing because of my SLO. I encourage the committee to return to 10% so the student learning objectives can return to a level where dialogue continues and teachers feel that it is okay to take those risks, to challenge ourselves and to challenge our students. And I will be leaving you all of my results without the students' names and my evaluation because I'm actually proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Clint Toledo for the record. Again, I just want to make sure that you all understand I'm on the same page as them. I would like the SLO drop to 10 to 15%.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association, the voice of Nevada educators for over 100 years. NSCA did submit a memo and a number of other documents. Would encourage committee members to take a look at those before the work session. NSCA opposes SB 475 based on the continued unfair use of student learning goals or student learning objectives in teacher evaluations. Instead, we'd ask that a teacher be evaluated on their instructional practice, leadership, and other professional responsibilities. Over the last few weeks, the State Association conducted a survey of teachers across the state. It is this document. We had over 3,500 teachers in the classroom respond, over 90% of whom said that the current evaluation system is unfair. More than 2/3 of the respondents thought that either 0 or 10% was the most appropriate percentage of SLOs or SLGs to use in a teacher's evaluation. Interestingly enough, I should thank colleagues from the Clark County Education Association while speaking from the support table who seemed to back up NSCA's position, and the majority of their own members' position on this, where over 2/3 of self-identified CCA members completing the survey, over 750 of those members believed that 0 or 10% was the most fair percentage. So if you ask those who are in the classroom whose professional practice is most impacted by this bill, they will tell you that that percentage of SLOs or SLGs should be 0 to 10%. And it makes sense. Even Pam Salazar, one of the national experts in this, says there is no right weight. This is a political number. Really, the only number that can be justified is 0. If you want to compare to Massachusetts, double the amount of money that you're spending per pupil. Keep the SLOs and SLGs and then compare us to Massachusetts, or compare us to the 11 states who don't use student growth in their evaluations, including the largest state, including 4 southern states or 3 southern states in Indiana who've moved away from the use of student growth in teacher evaluations over the last 2 years. Finally, you'll be hearing others reading some emails that were sent in. Perhaps you've received some of these 630 emails from teachers in the classroom who want to see no use of SLOs or SLGs in their evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Natha Anderson, also from Nevada State Education Association. And usually you would hear from me and where I feel and where I'm hearing from my members, but instead I'd like to, with permission of the chair, to be able to read the information from Pilar Biller. She is the 2018 Teacher of the Year, if that is appropriate, and I'll also make sure that you have a copy of it. Dear Senator Dennis and Assemblyman Thompson, here's the thing. The SLO can be a good professional development tool. It breaks down the learning objectives and requires teachers to be reflective in their practice. I strongly advocate for more rigorous professional development. However, the SLO as a teaching evaluation simply goes back to unfair practice. There are far too many variables involved in student gains for this assessment to be equitable. Educators want accountability, but only when it is based upon fair, timely, rigorous, and valid measures. Teachers spend too much time on paperwork and implementing the SLO, SLGs, taking away from meaningful conversations and work with our professional learning communities. SLOs or SLGs are unable to accurately measure student growth over an entire school year, as evaluation cycles begin late and are completed before the end of the school year. And we're also pushed to focus on technical compliance and default to the SLOs or SLGs we believe will be more achievable for our students, as opposed to actually allowing time to help them learn. There's little to no evidence that the use of SLOs and SLGs in teacher evaluations lead to improved instruction or even better overall student outcome. There's even less evidence to support the use of any specific percentage in teacher evaluations, whether it be 40%, 20%, or any other arbitrary percentage. For the reasons stated, I oppose the use of SLOs and SLGs in teacher evaluations. And if time allows, I'd also would like to just very quickly go into a member or an educator from Clark County. My biggest concern is that I am a computer specialist, and I see every student in my school once each week for 50 minutes. That works out to about 30 days or 25 hours. In some, it is not enough time to accurately portray my effectiveness as a teacher. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Ruben Murillo, president of the Nevada State Education Association. And one of the things that you hear through this testimony is there are concerns with SLOs and SLGs from both sides. It seems like when it comes to teachers' evaluations, we want to be evaluated. We want it to be done fairly. We want it to be used with tools that are effective, not only for our evaluation, but for the education of our students. In this day and age, with all the presidential candidates coming in, had a conversation with Senator Harris last night, and also this morning with Senator Warren, and they also have expressed that in order for us to really fairly evaluate a teacher, we need to make sure that they have the tools that are necessary to support them in the classroom before we go to the extent of evaluating them. How can you do that when they don't have the resources necessary to teach our children? So I have two letters here that I want to read. One of them is from a CCA member, Daly Rowan, who has sent a letter to you that says 20% of an evaluation on SLOs and SLGs is neither a fair nor valid measure of the complex demands of the teaching profession, and there is little to no evidence that SLOs and SLGs in teacher evaluations lead to improved instruction or better overall student outcomes. And from Elko, I have a letter from Kristen Birdsell. She's an Elko High School science teacher and science department head at Elko High School, and she has been rated highly effective teacher on every evaluation she has received while teaching. In addition, she was awarded the 2018 Outstanding Biology Teacher Award by the state of Nevada for the National Association of Biology Teachers. So she goes down to say that she understands that the idea appears good on paper, but in practice, it is a complete failure in what it intends to accomplish, the SLOs and SLGs. There's nothing about them that leads to improved instruction or better student outcomes. Rather, it drives teachers toward more standardized testing in hopes of generating the necessary data to satisfy them. I'll submit the rest of it. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Munson. I'm with the Washoe Education Association and Nevada State Education Association. And my remarks today will be, I'll be reading in Melinda Ramirsma, the Humboldt County Education Association President's comments. As president of my local teachers association, I plead with you to take this matter seriously. My teachers go above and beyond for their students in all aspects of life. We are not just educators teaching the curriculum. We are the fill-in moms and dads. Even at the expense of our own families, we strive to be what our students need us to be. The pressure of how these students do on a test is putting so much unneeded stress on all of our teachers. NEPF already allows for evaluating how well we do our jobs. I support evaluations based on instructional practice, leadership, and professional responsibilities. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. Melinda Ramirsma, Humboldt County Education Association President. Thank you, Senator Dennis.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Suzanne Bennett. I'm a Washoe retired educator. I'm reading a letter from a Washoe County teacher who's unable to be here today. This has really hit home for me this year as I have 35 students in my 4th grade class at Pleasant Valley Elementary in Reno, Nevada. I've just finished my final assessment for my SLO and realized that not all of my students made the growth targets I set for them in October. I attribute several factors to this. 35 is the most students I have ever been responsible for in my 19 years of teaching. When I set my growth targets in October, I didn't know them well enough to precisely identify their skill levels, motivation, or family situations, simply because there are so many of them. I also cannot manage the time it takes to give 35 students the individual instruction they need and deserve to show adequate growth on my SLO. I'm a good, hardworking teacher and a 4th-generation Nevada native. I love my job. I chose to teach 4th grade because I love teaching the history of the state I grew up in. But if I taught a lower grade level, I'd have half the number of students in my class. This would ensure that I could spend more individual time with them and show adequate growth to prove on paper that I am a good teacher. I would receive a better score on my SLO and get the highly effective rating I would hope to earn after being in the profession for almost 20 years. We can't have it all. We can't have the highest class sizes in the nation on average, expect teachers to show significant growth on SLOs, and be measured as showing growth on our high-stakes standardized tests. Something has to give. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Fran MacGregor. I'm a teacher in Washoe County and I'm also the Vice President of the Washoe Education Association. I'm reading today a letter from a fellow educator in Washoe County who is not able to be here. Her name is Yvonne Williams. She writes, I am a special education teacher for 3 to 5-year-old students. The range of needs in my classroom is huge. I work on a wide range of skills from social behavior, self-help to motor skills, communication, and cognitive skills. It is extremely difficult to choose one skill that most of my students are similarly working on. In addition, taking into consideration factors of the wide variety of issues my students are experiencing, from health impairments like seizures, G-tubes, CP, nonverbal to cognitive issues that a disabling condition may impact that is still unknown at such a young age, like autism, drug-affected, or trauma, it is extremely difficult to predict the amount of growth a child will make in only 6 to 8 weeks. Then if they don't reach the expected growth, we are punished with a poor evaluation, even if we are rated highly effective. That is just another way to reduce teacher morale, degrade an already physically and mentally challenging role, and encourage teachers to find a different career. Each of my 21 students has an IEP with individualized goals and objectives, and I work on these on a daily basis, in addition to a multitude of skills not in the IEP. Some, like diapering, toileting, hygiene, and communication, are very time-consuming through the course of every day. And testing, did I mention testing? I have to test each of my PK students twice a year, a full battery of skills that can literally take me days to complete with some of my students. My students are in class 2.5 hours a day. That is not a lot of time to do all the things we do in a given day. SLOs are like an IEP for teachers. Aren't we doing enough with each child that already has a unique individual IEP of their own? So with an SLO, I'm focusing much of my time on one small set of skills when I could be using that time to address my students' individual needs. Finally, taking data of the SLOs takes time away from taking data on other specific skills to the students' IEPs, data I can collect to prove that my students are making progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Senator Dennis, my name is Kathleen Wadi, and I am a retired Washoe County School District educator and principal, and I'd like to read a letter on behalf of a colleague who can't be here from Lyon County. I write to ask for your support to end the use of student data and teacher evaluations. I work in an over 80% reduced or free lunch school with very little parent support for student education. My students grow up not valuing education, and it's up to us as teachers to teach them that their learning is important. As I monitor SBAC testing, I watched older students simply not care about their test results and enter it randomly information to just get through the test. Our evaluations are based on these students, on data that is beyond our control. I cannot force a student to want to do well on a state test that has no meaning for them. In addition, the SLGs take up a huge amount of our time. It took me 4 hours to do a pre-evaluation, 4 hours on a Saturday night that I could have spent time with my family or planning how to teach the curriculum. I already know what I need to improve on without the SLGs or the pre-evaluation telling me so. In addition, the evaluation system is not realistic. Yes, it would be ideal if we could reach 100% of our students. However, with a large amount of SPED students placed in regular classrooms with no additional support, it simply is not going to happen. And I read this on behalf of Agnes Francis from Lyon County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Dennis and committee members. My name is Dana Galvin. I'm a proud member of WEA and the NSEA. I'm reading a letter on behalf of a Carson High School teacher by the name of Patrick Mobley. He couldn't be here today. Dear Senator Dennis and Assemblyman Thompson, I write to ask your support to end the use of student data in teacher evaluations, which do not accurately reflect a teacher's ability in the classroom or students' actual knowledge. Over the last 3 years, attempting to implement a policy to create, assess, and analyze student SLGs has shown that factors outside of my classroom have a strong negative impact on the SLG process and artificial impact scores. Student attendance has become the greatest single challenge I face when getting students to meet their SLG goal. When 33% of a class is absent or tardy every day, it becomes difficult to even administer an SLG assessment, let alone teach skills or content needed to reach SLG goals. Carson High's policy of requiring parents to drop their students off in one location has dramatically increased the number of tardies for first period class. Students are often 30 minutes late due to the backup of people trying to get into the school at the single entry point. This has led to a direct impact on my SLG, with morning classes having much lower SLG scores based upon the seemingly unrelated decision by the school. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Alexander Marks with the Nevada State Education Association, reading a letter from a teacher from Ormsby County. I work at a Title I school with a student population that is predominantly low-income families that struggle with many challenges at home. Drug issues, crime, gang violence, etc., and poor living conditions are just a few of the issues many of my students face on a daily basis. How are my students supposed to focus on standardized tests when their brains are constantly in fight or flight mode, trying to think of a way to help their families, worried about their families, or even trying to find a way to escape for their lives? Now the state of Nevada is dictating my evaluation and my effectiveness as a teacher based on the very students who aren't concerned about the test they just took, but instead are worried about how they're going to feed themselves and their siblings for dinner because their parents aren't around. This is an unjust and unfair way to treat teachers everywhere. While I support the use of data from standardized testing to measure growth and improve my practice as an educator to help them, I do not support almost half or even 20% of my evaluation being determined by a single goal based on my students' achievement. My evaluation should be based on my work, my practice, my pedagogy, my efforts, not that of my students who are fighting just to survive the tough world they've been brought into at no fault of their own. I support evaluations based on instructional practice, leadership, and professional responsibilities. Please make evaluations for teachers in this state fair. If you choose not to, you will be alienating teachers across this great state and force us to seek out more favorable placements where evaluation practices are fair. How is that good for Nevada's children? Help teachers, help our students, help our state by removing SLOs from our evaluations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
For the record, my name is Lisa Guzman. I'm the Assistant Executive Director for the Nevada State Education Association. The Washoe teachers are on spring break, so I have 2 letters that I would like to read to you, and that's also why we have so many WEA members here, is because they're on spring break. As a special education, this is from Tracy Shepard. As a special education teacher, I work hard to help our students that struggle most. I have the demand of writing, tracking, and documenting all IEP requirements and goals, up to 9 goals per child on my caseload of up to 27 kids. That is already approximately 250 goals to keep track of. To ask me to write another goal and track data on that is unrealistic expectation. We are working diligently to get these kids to be successful. The SLG is a waste of time because the data can be skewed based on the different populations of kids each teacher works with. Test scores are not a direct indication of if you are a good teacher or not. My second letter is from Janine Luciani. She's from Washoe also. This year, I personally feel the adverse effects of the current SLO process. Because of the late enrollment, my class consists of 9 students coming to me already in the tier process. This is the system of identifying students who are achieving far below the norm. Over the course of their education, they have proven to be less successful than their peers. Because of this, we provide intense academic intervention throughout the school year and their individualized levels. However, the SLO process requires them to succeed at a grade level expectation in order to prove I am an effective teacher. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?